My guest this week is Mikael Jorgensen. Mikael is a Grammy Award-winning artist who has been touring and recording with the band Wilco since 2002 and cultivates many parallel projects, including Quindar, Expanders, and Lizard Music. After moving from New Jersey to Chicago in 1998, Mikael was also pivotal in establishing John McEntire's Soma Electronic Music Studios. Living in Ojai since 2002, he continues to record and tour while pursuing music production, performing, photography, writing, and filmmaking. And it gives me great pleasure to welcome to Revolutions Per Movie, Mikael Jorgensen. Hi, Mikael.
Hello, Chris. How are you?
I'm fantastic. I read a quote from you that said, somehow when you were young, you survived on ramen packets and $2 pack cigarettes.
Yeah.
But look at you now. You've worked with Stereolab and the mighty Bobby Kahn and King Kong and Rebecca Gates, and you're working Wilco, and you helped build Soma Studios with John McEntire, who I don't know if he ever talked about his old punk band, the Oily Bloodmen from Portland, but
a little bit.
That's where I first met John, when he was just out of the McDonald's marching band. You've got like a new record with like Lizard Music on Omnivore, music, commercials, Baby Einstein. You do TED Talks, all this stuff. When you wake up, do you know what the hell you're going to do on any given day?
It's a really good question. Somehow music is always the sort of gravitational force, but like I get flung out in different directions. And yeah, I mean, every day is a little bit different. I mean, some days it's, pretty aimless, and there are other times where, there's a pretty good focus on what needs to happen that day and for whatever project. I just love doing and knowing all sorts of things. It's sort of, I don't think I'm an ADHD person. I mean, I think it's probably a spectrum, and I think I probably rank maybe a little bit lower on that. But I think as you get older, maybe it gets a little more harder to like hone in on certain things for extended amounts of time. There's just, it's funny. I've been digitizing, here, I'll give you a little.
Yeah, give me a sneak.
Let's see what we got here. So I've been digitizing audio cassettes. Yeah, so Fuji DR90, of course. And this says MJ/Akai/DX100/CZ1000/IBM PC from December 12th, 1989. So this was me in my bedroom spending hours and hours and hours and hours figuring out how to make music with my IBM PC, no mouse, amber monitor, two floppy drives. That's like while everybody else was out smoking, drinking beer, and developing social skills, I was up in my bedroom. And then my friend Eric Paparosi, who I've known since high school, he plays with Cat Power and
yeah, he's amazing.
Yeah, and but we were huge Letterman fans.
So you would record David Letterman off the TV?
No, we would go out in Monmouth County, New Jersey. This was March 2nd, 1991. And my dad, who was a recording engineer, there's so much to get into. I don't know if this is the road we need to go down at the moment, but I'll give it.
I got a feeling you're going to be a repeat guest. Don't worry.
For color, my father was a recording engineer in New York City. And then he kind of retired. He worked with Phil Ramone and Bob James and like hundreds of and worked on tons of stuff. And then at a certain point, he got sick. He had prostate cancer, and decided he was going to kind of retire from recording. And then instead of doing that, he would install sound systems in churches in New Jersey. And so I would go with him and work with him, and we would pull out old systems and put in, at the time, brand new ones. And so I would have all these sort of space age Electro Voice microphones that had these kind of obscure connectors on the end. And so I would resolder them and then I had a little handheld cassette machine and this like silver phallic microphone that had just the worst sound to it. And we would go out and we would like go into the Japanese steakhouse and interview the maitre d' and the people who worked there, the local motel owner. We knocked on the door at like, I don't know, 10:30 at night, wanted to interview her and asked like just ridiculous questions, very much inspired by the Letterman top 10 list. So like,
Sure.
that was like
Yeah,
kind
yeah.
of a seminal piece of like non-musical culture that like really hit us. So I've been just like digitizing a lot of these cassettes, and I've been posting some of them on my Patreon as well. So
Well, yeah, and I even saw footage of you posting a high school talent show you were doing with this archaic computer,
yeah,
and
no, I
you're
mean,
like, it's not going well. You have to reboot it in real time,
yeah.
waiting.
Well, it wasn't, and technically it was just I didn't have audio, so I didn't have to reboot because that would have taken 15 minutes.
Okay. But yeah, it was, I was holding my breath because I saw a teenager like in front of peers ready to blow some minds and then just having to problem solve. It's just that you shared that. I was like, oh my God.
It's taken so long to get cool with all of that. It really has. I mean,
this is not gotcha journalism, but we did meet in 2002 when I was working on the Hedvig charity album for the Harvey Milk School with John Cameron Mitchell. It was 2001, 2002. We were talking to Wilco about coming on the record, and it didn't work out, but it was very exciting that they were interested. And I met you on your first tour. You were so kind, and went back out to watch the band, and I was like, oh, that dude's singing with a computer.
What the hell is he doing up there?
I was like, wait, this is allowed now? And that, I mean, now it's so common. I go to festivals and I'm like, yep, there it is. But my mind was unsure of what was going on, what the role was. And it was so just dumb of me. But did you feel like a little misunderstood when you were trying to do that in Wilco initially, like visually especially?
I mean, it was such that, I mean, so that 2002 is so that must have been, let me rewind my memory here. So that was the fall of 2002, if I'm not mistaken, because 2002 is the year that like my official start, like we started recording Ghost is Born in
Right.
February of 2002. And of course it's a big moment for me. So I have a pretty good memory about that. I have a pretty good memory in general, not everything, but like, we'll wind up in a venue somewhere. I'm like, oh yeah, this is over here. And then everyone's like, what the hell is wrong with you? Why do you remember this stuff? And I'm like,
Right.
I didn't choose this. This is just how it is. Yeah, so it was pretty terrifying to become part of this already beloved institution and be a really outlier sonic component of that, and there not be the visual analog for making sound on stage. And oh, that's where that's coming from. Guitar
Yes.
player, bass, drums, keyboards, singing, of course, like you get it, right?
Right.
And just like, yeah, we'll just cover all are you checking your email up there? Are you surfing the internet during the show? Like, no, I'm not. I'm actually.
No, I knew you were doing something, but it was
But the optics.
different. It was so different. Yeah,
Yeah,
the optics.
The optics
exactly.
are challenging. It's a conceptual something. But it was really, I'll admit that I sort of went on forums early on, and just to kind of see, and there wasn't really a ton of chatter. Maybe there wasn't really a lot of ways to talk about what it was that I was doing back then. Maybe I don't know, but
Sure.
And then after a while, I was like, I definitely don't need to be going on the forums. And I stopped completely, like within the first year. I mean, when some weird, or maybe not weird, but like some unexpected moment happened on stage. There was a time in Springfield, Illinois. We were playing at like a sort of a Elks kind of theater, Elks Lodge, BPOE kind of place, and they had like Shriners were the security, like octogenarians, like keeping people from coming on the stage. And at the end of Poor Places, it's the sort of big miasmic, section of that song. And some girl came up and just sat down next to me on the keyboard bench. And instantly I was like, oh, we're in the back of the bus at the end of The Graduate. She like ran up here, got down, sat down, and she was like, oh fuck, now what? I didn't really think this through. And so I was like, okay, well, it's in B flat. So here, I pointed to the notes on the keyboard, like play these notes, and then I would go on and see like, oh, was there any report of that? Was that, is she okay? And then security eventually pulled her off, and it was pretty benign as far as like, interlopers and stage crashing. But after that, I was just like, no more. I'm not going on the forums. That's right. That's not why I'm doing this. But to answer your question, yeah, it was complicated and pretty scary, to be honest, those early days,
Yeah, I bet. I mean, even being the
scary.
Bass player. No, I know. But even when I joined Guided by Voices as a bass player, I had people come up to me and be like, I don't like you. I miss Tim. And I'd be like, sorry, I joined my favorite band. I don't know what you want me to do with this. Like,
yeah.
I'd be like, no, you're cool. You seem cool. And it was like trying to show my worth was hard to people of just a certain fanaticism of a fan base.
Yeah, it's tricky. What was I watching the other day about? Somebody was talking. I think I was watching Fred Armisen on Best Show with Tom Sharpling, and they were talking about bands and how it was like you back in the late 70s, early 80s, like you could only like one brand of music, one kind of music. Like you couldn't like jazz and punk rock and classic rock, and popular music. Like it was, you had to pick a lane and that was it. You couldn't stray. Otherwise you were, I don't know, a traitor to your.
Yeah, it's so incredible. It comes up a lot on this podcast where it's like you had to choose your camp and you wore your music as a complete armor.
Oh, yeah.
It was a complete identity.
Mm-hmm.
It was a shield. It was confidence. Yeah, I'm this person. It's just, it doesn't make any sense anymore. Like,
no, but I think that, I get the tribalism, right? I understand.
Yeah,
like
absolutely.
These are my people. This is my, I'm belonging, and I think it's, maybe a good segue into Heavy Metal Parking Lot, because that's
absolutely
a complete and perfect. And so, even though that's sort of like a, like a casual interpretation of that is like, oh, this is just a bunch of burnouts, but I've watched it twice since like in the past few days, just to refresh my memory, because it's been a while. And I also watched the shit out of it when I moved to Chicago. We finally, somebody was like, oh, you got to watch this Heavy Metal Parking Lot. And I was watching it and I was just like terrified, because I was comparing it to my experience in high school. Because in '86, I was 14. Wait, am I doing that math right? 16. Wait, yeah, something like that. Yeah.
How old were you when Life's Rich Pageant came out? That's what I do.
Oh, I was a late adopter. I was a green REM guy.
Okay, that was 88.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah. You were like a sophomore or something.
Yeah.
Like that. And you grew up in New Jersey.
Yes.
So.
And I'm pretty sure that I know somebody that I went to high school with, somebody who's in Heavy Metal Parking Lot. Like every time of that, there's a scene where the camera's like tracking past a line of people waiting to get in. And there's this one guy, I'm like, oh God, that's bad. I know it's got to be,
And is that a good Pat or a bad Pat?
Are we doing this now? Are we into this part of the show?
Yeah, we're
Okay,
into
all
it.
right.
Welcome to Heavy Metal Parking Lot.
I mean, there's so many. When I'm watching it now, there's so many things that I think about. But I think it's like May 6th. Is that right? It's like 1986.
Yeah.
But it's like springtime, right? And growing up
in Maryland.
Yeah. It's the Capitol Center,
Yes.
which is where in Maryland? Do you remember? Was it?
They talk about Ocean City at
Well,
one
Ocean
point.
City, Maryland is like the party town.
Yeah, and that's like an hour.
Yeah,
I
that's
think, from this.
This is sort of more inland, probably right off 95 somewhere. Not Glen Burnie, but anyway, the one thing that I think about when I watch that, and maybe this was always there, but I never articulated it, was I know that the weather of that day, like it was April had just passed, and it's been like every once in a while you'd get like a little glimmer of a nice warm day, and then all of a sudden the light, the switch changes, and like everything blossoms and blooms, and it's 75 degrees, and it's this like celebration of being outside, like winter is over, like summer is about to be here. And
school is almost
exactly
out.
Almost. It's not quite. You got maybe another month or so.
But we're checked out.
Yeah. But we are ready for summer. And the other thing is like how skinny everybody is.
Rake thin and ripped.
Incredible. Like Grandma Dope, that guy, I mean, he's just gonna blow away in a breeze.
Do you think it has to do with just the way food is nowadays? I couldn't figure it out. I was like, just people weren't maybe eating badly all the time. And I don't know. It just was so weird. I was looking at them and I was like, I know they're eating, because if you're stoned, you do get hungry. And if you're hungover, you need to make some bad choices with food later on. But yeah, everyone is skinny. I did some work on my own. There are 502 people who don't have their shirts on in this film.
Did you have AI?
I went through. No, I did it. I did it with I had a golf clicker in one hand and a golf clicker in the other. 318 with shirts. So people without shirts far outnumber. And I just remember that too. It was like shirt optional.
Yeah, and a lot of DC 101 T-shirts, which was a radio station I didn't listen to growing up, but it was a big one.
Did you have any metal bone in your body growing up?
No. I mean, my parents were immigrants from Norway and Denmark. My dad's from Denmark, mom's from Norway, and we grew up very religious, but it was a family-centric church experience. Like it was just sort of an extension of our family life, right? And so we would just all go to church on Sunday, and for better or for worse. And I grew up with this opinion and position that my mom took, that like all this heavy metal was like, the fucking end of the world. The KISS stood for Knights in Satan's Service. And I remember when I was younger, for color here, I loved the TV show 3-2-1 Contact.
I did too.
It was amazing. So that was broadcast on PBS nationwide, right? Because you grew up in Portland on the West Coast.
Contact.
Yeah. That song, there's an episode where they go through the recording of that song. That song was recorded at Media Sound Studios where my dad worked. So I had this, and the PBS studios in the 70s was in Midtown Manhattan.
That's awesome. I had a letter read on Zoom.
Oh, nice. Excellent. I remember Zoom.
So I was a PBS kid.
Yeah, no, totally. Too. Mr. Rogers, Electric Company. But there was a segment on 3-2-1 Contact, and I felt so betrayed by this. They did sort of a time lapse day in the life, or like sort of a 5-10 minute segment on following a KISS concert coming in, and time lapses. time lapses of the stage being built and the trusses going up and the lighting rigs and the speakers, and then and then it cuts to like sound check and like my memory is like so my dad's a recording engineer. He also did live sound, so I knew the sort of like some of the optics of what that was like. So there's a mixing board at the front of the house, and that's my dad's out there mixing the sound, and then so to see this other like horrifying devil forward sort of little like segment on this on this concert. There was like a guy in an umbrella over the monitor board, and he had the umbrella because there's all this confetti falling, and he's just trying to keep it his head in the show. But the whole time that this is on, I'm like switching the channels to like not watch it and then come back to see if it's over, so I would like switch from channel 13 to channel 5, or see, it was like nightly news was on, so it was not anything I was interested in, and I would just check back and be like, when is this gonna end? So to answer your question, not a lot of metal in my bones.
And then you say that you feel the people in this film. So wait, well, let me ask you this: when did you saw this in Chicago?
Yeah, 98.
Probably like a bootleg VHS that was being passed around. Like
like the worst quality. Like been dubbed dozens of, maybe not dozens, but many times.
17 minutes long. It's one of the greatest 17 minutes of all time. So when you're watching it, are those feelings coming back, or like were you able to laugh at it? Was it scary? Because it is a weird line it walks. Like the people who are making this obviously are not metal fans, and it's an era where a camera is still a novelty.
Oh,
like it's
totally.
It's like a cable access style camera, so people are just gonna dive in front of your lens and just take the microphone and go boop, 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 boop,
yeah, I love that guy. Oh my god. And how that guy runs out of gas is the best. He's like boop, 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 boop.
I know, and right before it is the parking attendant who's from Jamaica, and he's like, "This is crazy."
Yeah, like there's nothing with this wild that happens in Jamaica.
He's like, never.
Yeah.
It's like, does anything happen like this in Jamaica? He's like, never.
Yeah.
And then it's like, boo, 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 boo,
yeah.
And they pan over. It is so choreographed in such a beautiful way. Just like you said, the air, the sky, the amount of pre-show partying, it's all at a perfect pitch where people are getting sloppy, but they're still entertaining.
And there's such a, like, again, even though it is like the burnouts and the metalheads and the sort of, I don't know, like the tough guys, right? There's still this like innocent purity to all of it that that's the thing that still kind of hits me. There's the zebra stripe. Zebraman. There was like, did you see there was a doc on that guy?
Yes.
And he kind of just like,
he's like, I'm in the country now. I don't have anything.
Yeah, I'm not, like, he just wasn't interested in revisiting that part, which is too bad because it was like just own it, dude. He
was so great. He's like, I have it written down here. I won't do it justice, but he's like in a black and white zebra outfit with sleeves cut off, matching zebra pants, a white belt and a black belt, which was key. Like you had to have 2 belts.
Yeah.
And he's like, it sucks shit. Heavy metal rules. All that punk shit sucks. It doesn't belong in this world. It belongs on fucking Mars. What the hell is punk shit? And Madonna can go to hell as far as I'm concerned. She's a dick. Then he puts the mic up to his mouth and he hits it.
Yeah.
He's like, ow. It is the most beautiful thing.
And lets out that sort of that mid-pubescent voice squeak. Like,
yes.
Yes. Oh, it's so beautiful. It's so beautiful. I have to say, it's incredible.
You forget, when you're in high school, certain 15, 16, and 17-year-olds look like they're 35. So the people in this film are children still. They're teenagers for the most part.
Yeah.
They talk to some people who are like, I'm 25, like these kids. Yeah, But most of them are, 19 and younger. And it's so funny to see this thing where they're starting to grow the mustache out a bit. drinking underage or high as hell. It's a weird, stunted adulthood on parade.
Totally. It is a remarkable document. And I think Jeff Krulik and I can't remember the other guy's name, the guys who they're community access television producers in DC or Maryland or something. Yes. Baltimore, possibly. I mean, there are so many beautiful details that, like, every time I watch it, I'm like reminded of that. And like, for me, it's the accents alone are amazing. I mean, it's that Maryland, Baltimore, like, after this, we're going to Ocean City to party more, it's so incredible. Like, I don't know how much that continues to be an accent. Cause like I grew up in New Jersey, and there, it's sort of like it was a separate flavor from the kind of Bronx, Brooklyn accent, like my parents' friends, they lived in New Jersey, and they were Welsh, like lineage wise, but like she was like, we have this dog. This dog is the dumbest dog you've ever seen in your whole life, and it was like, I don't know if that's still as much as prevalent proportionally as it was back in the 80s, when media wasn't nearly as all encompassing as it is today, where there's like no secrets left in a way.
Yeah, when they revisit in the follow-up to this film, people's accents are pretty tamped down.
Flattened out
where they are in this. Yeah, mm-hmm. Yeah. There's the girl with the red hair who is like, and they're like, "Are you fucked up? Half and half."
Oh yeah,
I can't do
half and half.
There you go.
Yeah.
I jump his bones.
Oh, it's so great. And it's like, ugh. I came up with a ridiculous idea. Like, it sort of arrived fully, maybe not fully formed, but to do as an art project, like a sort of an experiential art project, is to, I don't know, is that place still around? The Capital City?
No, it closed. Basically, the Capital City, it was like almost 20,000 capacity, and it closed in 2002. And they stopped having rock shows in 94. But at the time, they had The Who, Frank Sinatra, Sammy Davis Jr., Grand Funk Railroad, Led Zeppelin, Pink Floyd, Kiss, your friend's Kiss played, Grateful Dead, Parliament, Funkadelic, Queen. Like, it was a stop. Substantial. And so Judas Priest at this point, they were at their height. And did you ever learn to like metal?
Learn to like, I mean, later on in the 90s, when bands like, Nirvana, Soundgarden, and Mudhoney, Helmet, and Mr. Bungle, like that's probably about as metal as I dared to go. And I did listen to a couple of Godflesh records, but that was
I haven't even heard Godflesh.
I mean, it's just, it's dark, doomy, cloudy day, cemetery music.
But it's funny. If you listen to Judas Priest now, you're like, it's just a ton of hooks.
No, it's like poppy rock and roll. I mean, it doesn't have the musical stuff. I mean, I will admit my ignorance here. I don't own Judas Priest records, but of all of the music that I've heard, it really is just this sort of like amped up pub rock. Like, it's just like ding 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 do 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 do, and it's not like Iron Maiden musically sounds very metal, right? Like that.
Yes.
It had, like Sabbath, Sabbath, Bloody Sabbath, like all of that, like, employs like the musical tools to make it sound scary or ominous or dark or whatever.
Yes.
And but that's what's like sort of disorienting about, at least, Living After Midnight and Breaking the Law. Like, it's just
hot rocking.
Yeah, hot rocking.
I wanna go. Hot rocking. One of the best videos too, where they're just working out in a gym, and then they end up in the sauna, and then he he throws steam on some rocks. That's like the first 50 seconds of that video. You're like, okay, we're going to watch you guys work out and then in the sauna. Like, I'm ready to buy your record.
Yeah.
So it was like.
And I'm sure that, I mean, I can only imagine how incredibly challenging it was for Rob Halford to be a gay man. I mean, not really closeted, but not open. You know, I mean, all of the iconography and or maybe not iconography, but the sort of the visual vocabulary of that band is so much. Oh my God, this is all just BDSM, leather and dominance, and I don't want to dismiss that part of it, right? Because I'm sure that was really difficult. You probably even internally in the band and all that stuff. But back to my idea was to maybe this could be an art installation that we would script out and sort of name all the characters in Heavy Metal Parking Lot, right?
Okay.
And find period appropriate cars. It probably would be hard to get the exact ones, but then do like a recreation, kind of like a Tony and Tina's wedding, but Heavy Metal Parking Lot. So you could go to Heavy Metal Parking Lot.
Oh, that's killer.
One
you can
day.
Go hang with Zebraman.
Yeah. I just went to Disneyland, so that's like all in my...
The joints across America.
Yeah. They should legalize drugs. That's a fact.
The other guy I love is the guy who grabs the mic and has the best swagger in the thing. He's like, and he's singing Living After Midnight.
Oh, yeah.
And he's like, living after midnight, rocking to the dawn. And then he's like, let me tell you something. Priest is the best. Rob Halford is a motherfucking singer. Priest is number one. Who comes next? Iron Maiden.
Iron Maiden, man.
So passionate. That fan base of metal, it's like so loyal. Like, it's the amount of merchandise they can sell, the amount of records they can sell, the amount of people who keep coming to the well for a certain band. It is quite impressive because as a kid, I was changing my genres really quickly. I was like, synthesizers. Okay, now I'm into like Paisley Underground. Now I'm into hardcore punk. Now I'm into ska. Now I'm into it's just like boom, boom, boom. Every year was like a new way to turn. And these people were just like, yeah, I like metal. Like, bring it on.
Yeah. And it totally makes sense that like the parking lot scene was almost as important, possibly more so than the concert, than the show, right? Like, it was this community building. It was getting together with your friends, and like, where the fuck were any of the parents, right? Like, there's that 13-year-old girl in the Camaro, in the front seat of the Camaro, like going out with a 19-year-old. And it's like, what has happened to cause that? I mean, I don't want to sort of like moralize, or cast aspersions on the decisions. I'm sure, like, in the early 20th century, it was fucking way gnarlier to be a kid, and it's easy to maybe not understand or conveniently ignore that kind of context in a way. But like, it really was like, wow. I mean, I have a 13-year-old and a 10-year-old, and it's like, would I allow my son to go to a metal concert? Probably not, at least like just with his friends, knowing what's going to happen there.
But it was such a cultural thing. It was like kids just said to their parents, I'm going to see The Who. And they're like, all right.
Yeah.
And they went and saw The Who.
Yeah.
It wasn't
$25 so you can get a hot dog.
Right. And, I'm sure there were tons of parents who were like worried or like, when are you going to come home? When is it over?
Right.
But I just, I remember even when I started going out to, like music shows, club shows, when I was, all age shows when I was 14, 15, 16. I just would go, I'd just be like, I'm going to see Butthole Surfers. And they're like, okay, and I was like, if they were there, they'd probably be like, why is there a naked woman on stage with a gourd between her legs dancing with strobe lights, and there's penile reconstruction films going on, and there's fire being blown at you?
Right.
So in a funny way, I just feel like I think maybe it was just a time thing, but it was just like, yeah, I'm just going to the show was just a bit of a mantra, I think.
Yeah. I wasn't a big drinker. Like, I wasn't.
Yeah, I wasn't either.
Like, I didn't even go to a bar on my 21st birthday. Like it wasn't a big deal for me. Like a lot of my friends, in high school, they're like, oh man, we got so booked up this weekend. And, like, I was just always like, what's the point again? And I don't know if it was like deluding myself that I had this, nice home life, with like parents who cared for me. But yeah, like alcohol was never, I mean, I was curious about it, but not to the point where I was like, oh yeah, let's go get a case of beer and, go down to the rocks, like that never felt like a good time. But it seems so benevolent. I mean, there are definitely some kids that like, there's another great detail. Speaking of, I think that's the editing of it is incredible because those guys captured all these great little moments. There's one moment where there's like two cops in the parking lot. Maybe they're the only two, right, for this massive, several hundred car, huge parking lot.
Yes.
Like going around and, maybe busting kids for weed or beer or drinking beer underage. I also wonder if the drinking age in Maryland was 18 back then, or
could have been,
because I know in New Jersey it turned from 18 to 21 in like 1983, 4, something like that.
And you could drink in public, I guess, or were they just turning a blind eye? I mean,
I don't, there's probably so much money that's made by the promoters that they were probably like, making donations to the Maryland Police Department meme coin account, but there's these cops and they're like going through a VW bug, and holy moly, wait, what is going on here?
Oh, I have a surprise guest for us.
Holy shit. Wow.
I would like to bring on our surprise guest. He's a Washington, D.C.-based director and producer. He's screened films at the Museum of Modern Art, Lincoln Center, the American Film Institute, and on PBS.
Oh, my God.
He's made so many great documentaries like Hitler's Hat, Ernest Borgnine on the Bus, Led Zeppelin played here, We Are Fugazi, and the award-winning I Created Lancelot Link. And we are brought here today to talk about the film by co-producer of the cult documentary Heavy Metal Parking Lot. I bring you Jeff Krulik himself. Hi, Jeff.
Hi, Chris. Hi,
hey, Jeff.
That's Michael.
Michael. Yeah. Wow.
Wow. Amazing.
Hey, this is. I appreciate. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to interrupt you mid sentence, Mike.
No, it's all right. This is more interesting that you're here now. Holy crap! Wow, amazing to meet you over Zoom.
Likewise. Thank you for having me. Thank you for letting me come and interrupt your podcast.
Oh no, man.
No. Well, I do have a question for you off the top because
I have like 6,000 questions, but I'll let you go first.
Yeah, we were both a bit terrified of metal kids during this era. Like, were you nervous walking through that crowd at all with your camera? Because I know you both weren't metal people.
No, I made this with John Hine, my good friend still to this day. We made it almost 40 years ago. 2026 will be the 40th anniversary, and we just we were not metal fans. We were not. We understood a little bit of the culture from like Headbangers Ball on MTV and just what was happening in the general music landscape, but we thought perhaps we're going to encounter some hostility, but like we were up for the adventure, and we were real, we were aspiring documentary filmmakers. But I mean, I'm embellishing your simple question here. It was just like we were intimidated a bit until we and a little wary until we actually got out of the car and saw it was a total open welcome mat, just welcoming, tribe of people. And of course you had this big professional camera, very clunky. You look like a news crew, although we weren't dressed like it, and it was just like, but people kind of rallied around it.
Did you just wake up that morning being like, let's do this? Or did you, how in advance were you planning
We
this?
had some advanced planning because John had the idea. We had become fast friends. We had met maybe not long before, and well, maybe about a year and a half before. We wanted to make films. We wanted to make documentary. I had camera gear because I was working and running this public access studio at age 25. I had access to the gear, and I was in charge of this public access studio. John had the idea. I jumped on it right away. I said, we can use my gear, and I drove it. We paid what happened was we just focused in, we zeroed in on, thank God, on Judas Priest appearing at the Capitol Center. Like whenever that was on a Saturday night in end of May. And so it was a pure random good luck that it was that band, because that's what I think. There's a lot of reasons why we're still talking about it now. And that's one of them, is that it was Judas Priest. But I think it was just luck. John's idea, my access to equipment. We drove in my Bonneville, 78 Bonneville, paid our way, parked like concert goers, and then just got our gear out, and that's it. And the rest is history.
All right. I have like, again, so many questions, but I think one of the enduring qualities of Heavy Metal Parking Lot to me is the benevolence that you extend to the people in the video or the film, or like it never, at first you feel like, oh, this could potentially be a very judgmental portrayal of this subculture, however you want to describe it. But you treat these people with so much respect and dignity, and just give them the opportunity to talk about their experience. And it's so refreshing. And still to this day, that, like, it's not making fun of these people, the metalheads or the burnouts. It's this celebration of people coming together and having, like a communion, like there's so many religious parallels that you can draw with rock music concerts.
Right,
It's
right.
like all of it sort of makes sense. But that, I think the thing that, like I said, the thing that I think makes it endure is that, like, everyone's treated with a sense of dignity, whether they deserve it or not.
Absolutely.
Thank you. I appreciate that. And we certainly agree. And I appreciate that greatly, because it was the truth. I mean, we never had any agenda. We never really wanted to put words in anybody's mouth. We never goaded anybody or tried to, but, ultimately, when the film was then cut down, when John cut it, John edited it. And, and we only had an hour of footage, really 65 minutes of footage, and that's not much. And we were very fortunate. We didn't hang around after we burned up 3 of these 20-minute tapes and put a 4th one in and just got a little bit on that, these Umatic tapes. We then left. And, but
So you didn't see the show?
No,
No.
we didn't. We had no intention of seeing the show.
Right.
We
right.
had no intention. I thought I went out that night, and we had dates with our girlfriends, and I thought we went out to the movies. But basically we went back to my studio and put the tapes in and looked at it. And I coined the name Heavy Metal Parking Lot. That's my bragging rights. This is that it was my name. that leapt out at me right away seeing it. And then, but John did, cut it. So he's kind of credited, he is credited as director. But we both, it's a real tandem effort. And we, it just, I don't know. We were so fortunate for so many reasons. But John did cut it so that it's really the punchiest, most entertaining 15 minutes out of this hour. But if you look at the raw footage, which I have done, it's, there's a lot of moments and there's a lot of sober people. There's a lot of people just kind of hanging around. It's not that kind of insane bacchanalia. This was not a verite film, but it does really, I think, convey what you said. And I'm so appreciative of what you said, because that is the truth. When I said something like, well, we're from MTV, that was just out of exasperation, because
and then the guy's like, bullshit.
we were trying to explain to Channel 6A, because that was my public access channel that we were from, and that just went over everybody's heads. So it was just like, well, I don't know. We also got into the spirit of kind of goofing around a bit, but we didn't have like one of my favorite reviews of this film is from in DC, like a couple of years later, the Washington City paper, they said the filmmakers don't reveal themselves to be any brighter than the people that they're on. And it's because we're asking stuff. I'm just saying, the questions we're asking, or that I'm asking, is really like, just dumb. Like, what do are you having a good time? Are you partying? I mean, I think
it's perfect.
Yeah. It's just, there's nothing to it. At least on us, we didn't really engage in any deep, we just kind of went with whatever they said. Everybody was just high spirits, literally high in some cases, in other cases, just exuberant by being there in their tribe, the gathering. One of the most, I mean, I can go in so many tangents, and please forgive me, I don't want to do that. But one of the things, because it's your show and I'm happy to,
hit it.
But this fella Craig Giffen, you know him, in Portland, the human clock. He's in that. I know I've mentioned him in the past. He did this website, the T-shirts of Heavy Metal Parking Lot, and he literally analyzed every frame and picked out the T-shirts. And there's a website, you can see this. I'll send it to you. You can see, and it illustrates, like, a lot of people are wearing shirts, like in this case, like ZZ Top. And that's because ZZ Top had been to the Capitol Center for 4 nights the previous week. So people went to concerts. It didn't matter who was playing. A lot of that crowd were not metalheads or metal fans or whatever. They were just concert goers in their tribe. They just went to any concert that was happening at the Capitol Center. And you see all these random different shirts, and it just kind of it reinforces that. Really hammers that point home, because a lot of people, there were of course some on camera, and are a lot of real heavy duty Judas Priest fans or heavy metal fans or whatever, but others were just there for the experience of going to a concert with their family.
No, it's true. I mean, I remember seeing people show up with Devo shirts at high school, and I'd be like, where were you? I didn't see you there. And like, you like Devo? And then that was quickly wiped away the next week. It was like Van Halen or whatever. It was like, you did just go to the show. Some people, that was what they did.
Yes, exactly. And so I think, and it's that exuberance, we kind of have, that point is even further reinforced when we made our sequel 10 years later at Neil Diamond parking lot at the same, the Capitol Center was then the US Air Arena, but that, we, found that group of that gathering where there was a real strong connection to the gathering we had recorded 10 years earlier. It was just a completely, diametrically opposed, 180 degrees in the other direction, but yet not really with that kind of fan DNA, that was still coursing through the same. I don't know. I've spent too much time thinking about that too. This whole thing was totally by accident, not by design. Even the whole, we had no agenda. We had no plan. outside of just going there with these cameras and seeing what might happen, including the possibility that we could encounter a drug deal or some angry, hostile people who don't want to be videotaped. But that never happened at all. Not at all.
So I have a question. I know it's a long time ago, but when you put the cameras in the car after you did all this, did you have any sense of like, oh, we got some pretty cool stuff? Or was it, like, do you, or did you kind of discover, like, how aware of
Well,
of course the significance comes later, but were you like, oh man, there's something really cool to all this? Or were you like, I don't really remember what happened. I was busy, making sure that the focus was good and the audio levels were all right,
Yeah, no, it was funny. It's very the gears. You could just it was just laughable. I regret that there's no photograph of us or any kind of video of us like fumbling around or walking around with this. You had a deck, big, pneumatic deck, portable. The camera's big, microphone. So there's 3 different moving parts, and you're like tethered. There's tether. You're trying to. John and I would trade off at different times. Sometimes you hear sometimes I'm taping, sometimes I'm holding the microphone, and we just passed it around. You see my profile very briefly at one point when the guy going, ow,
Oh,
ow,
we talked
ow,
about
ow.
that a lot.
Yeah,
He did. Yeah, he grabs the mic.
yeah.
He grabbed the mic, and so I had the mic at that point, obviously, so he took it out of my hands. But it looks. I know clearly when we went back and looked at it, we were entertained and really excited about what we got. And like I said, the name came up to me just instantly at that moment. We're gonna call this Heavy Metal Parking Lot. But John had to take. This was months of him holding on to the tapes, and so I only saw it that one time. Although I think now I shouldn't say that John did make a tape. One day I'll have to go through all my VHS tapes to see if I can find a copy. I mean, we have the source tapes, of course, now digitized. I mean, we went back and made sure to preserve it, but I had to have it. So I was kind of cogitating. I didn't really know what he would come up with because he edited it. We shot it in May 31st, and then it was premiered in October, several months later at a local venue called DC Space. They had an open screening twice a month called IMI, and that's where we premiered it. The admission was just bring something to screen.
Nice.
But John did
awesome.
We did get it in their calendar, the schedule. Really, we knew we had something. We definitely knew there was something that was promotable, could find an audience. We knew we got good stuff. There's no question. And pure dumb random luck as far as who we ran into, who we were talking to. It just, the gods were smiling on us. The lightning and whatever you want to say, we got it. And we knew that. But then again, it just was, we didn't know where this was going to go. And John also people think we went to the concert or that we were somehow in lockstep or with the band. We didn't.
Really?
John.
That's kind of amazing to think that.
Well, here's what happened. They see the video because nobody gets that we have this pirated, stolen, if you will, borrowed concert video of them that John rented it from Tower Video. It was like from 81 or whatever that concert was that we use at the end. So there's some confusion for people.
Okay.
But no, it's totally just a home video that was, I think it might have even aired on MTV. I'm not sure. I can't remember. I wouldn't know, but it was taken from a VHS of Judas Priest in concert that John rented from Tower, I think.
I'm assuming that, all of a sudden you didn't go from one camera to like an 8 camera setup with like inside the arena. That's amazing. Well, I do have a question though. When did you start realizing that this film was getting out of your control and that people around the world were getting to see this, and then how did you get control of it back?
Well, we haven't got it's still out there, you know, and God knows where, and on especially now in this, you know, viral universe. But the
Right.
fact that it was viral video, there's all these, you know, it would have been over with in a week if you do it now, or a day, 48 hours. I mean, we were fortunate we were at this time where things could just, it was all done by tape trading, of course. We never had, you know, we knew we had something, but we also were at a time period, you know, let's say, so we want to be documentary filmmakers. We want to get into film festivals that were happening. You couldn't show video in a film festival. We had this thing on video. It was shot on video. No, we couldn't even call ourselves filmmakers. Back then, you were a video maker, you know, it's like, or whatever you wanted to say. No, we were, you know, we did. So we had this 15, 16-minute little packaged video, and people were digging it that we showed it to, only, you know, in like my living room or wherever. I took it to a record convention, schlepped in a deck and monitor. Nightclubs, 930 Club, I think we showed it once there, but we couldn't have any distribution, was limited because it was on video and you couldn't get it into film festivals. Very few venues. The Kennedy Center had a theater, the AFI's theater, American Film Institute, had a space that had video projection. So we were able to screen it there twice. But over the 4 years from 86 to 90, very limited outlets for it. At Art Space, John took it to a gallery in New York, but most of this circulation was done from tape trading. From just our friends wanted it. A couple of record stores we dropped it off at. And
I mean, that's how I saw it. It was a hand-me-down VHS tape that maybe just had HMPL on the label.
Right, yeah.
And it was the quality was terrible and the sound was bad, but nevertheless, I was just so incredibly captivated and enchanted by this incredible document.
Wow, that's neat. Appreciate that very much, you know.
And I have two questions.
200 questions. I'm
trying whittling them down in my mind here.
Be my guest. And if anybody,
I'm so happy about this, by the way.
Okay,
it's so great.
The first question is, did you, like, what response from the Judas Priest camp was there?
Oh my goodness. I mean, you're taking me, it's like, I mean, none really. Except,
really?
Well, what happened was, we, you know, when we made it, one of our goals, and so we made it in 86, and we're like, you know, when we realized, and I didn't show it on my public access studio because that was a thing. I never, that language too raw, and I didn't need to be flaunting this in front of my employers necessarily, or even the audience could have cared less. You know, they don't, just wasn't. But I wanted to be a filmmaker and a documentary filmmaker, and so this was John too, and this was our goals. But we realized the limitations, so we gave it out like water to people who asked for it. But we also conceptualized the idea that our ultimate goal, and this is after, you know, that year or so, was like, bring it back and show it at the Capitol Center the next time Judas Priest were on tour for their fans. That was going to be it. That was what we were going to do with this, and then be done with it. We wanted to share it with the fans at the Capitol Center on the big screen. So they came back in 1988, you know, through some connections. We had some help from the promoter that said, because we wanted to show this, and they were fine. Go to the band, talk to them. We got permission, got passes, schlepped in a 3/4-inch deck and a monitor backstage at the Capitol Center, and wound up screening it for like the tour manager. Because the people running the telescreen, that the monitor, the big screen, said anything the band wants is fine. We can show your